Good evening, good morrow, and good day, and welcome to Slice and Dice. Here today, talking about a one-shot that we've got coming up tomorrow on the stream from 2 p.m. GMT or British Standard or BST or whichever way you want to put it. We're going to be doing a one-shot that I've designed called the Amphail Assassin. This is going to be a sort of precursor to our second campaign here on the channel, which, as you can see here, is called Tales from the Sword Coast. So the second campaign, I won't be running it. I'll be a player in it for a change, which I have really enjoyed so far, this campaign, and I know so have the other players involved as well, and they've really been keen to get on the stream and to kind of show, not just show what we've been doing, but have you guys kind of get involved with it as well. So I hope that that you'll enjoy it as much as we do playing it. Before we get into that, before I start talking about this one shot that I've got planned to kind of introduce us to the Sword Coast, which is, of course, for those of you who know, is based on the Forgotten Realms setting, which is one of the official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition settings. And the main campaign is led by Angelique, who DMs the campaign, and she's going to be a player in this one shot. So again, it's kind of giving you a feel for new people and also for a new setting as well for our second campaign. Before we start, though, I just wanted to give a big heads up, big thank you to our most recent followers here on the channel. It really has meant a lot, and in the last week, we've particularly let's go out to Gundu Desert 1980, to Soulbit, who subscribed. Thank you, Soulbit, it really means a lot. And to Rolling Out and All Draw Labours 1979, who have all started following the channel. Thank you all so much for that. It really does mean a lot, and I hope you guys enjoy the new offering we have here on the channel, as well as our current offering with the Many Lands campaign on Monday nights. So there's twice as many reasons to join up here on the channel, to come and have a look, and of course to subscribe as well. If you like what you're seeing, want to see more of it, and want to support the channel as well as get some goodies yourself, please do hit that subscribe button. It really does mean a lot. So anyway, first thing to say today, Amphail is a small village that's north of Waterdeep. It's a few days' ride away from Waterdeep, and that is where I have set this one-shot, the Amphail Assassin. It's one that I've written myself, and I'm hoping that after the stream tomorrow, once I have ironed out some typos and so on, that I'll be able to release that adventure as a whole sort of downloadable PDF online. I will keep you updated with my progress on that when it comes out and so on. But basically, this is adapted from, I think, the first ever one-shot that I designed for Dungeons & Dragons. And I've just kind of revisited it and changed things around a little bit. But it's been a lot of fun to do, to really kind of get back into that process. And there's a few self-referential moments, which I think is more than warranted for a dungeon master when you're creating stuff. And I will kind of go through a few of those today. This is kind of a sneaking behind the curtain, the preview, if you like, before the main event. But first of all, let's give you a rundown on just kind of a background to this one shot, and of course some details about our characters, our player characters, because they are sort of the heart and soul of the story and for the one shot. So we'll be kind of going through each of those as well, going through their stats and a little bit about them. So first of all, here is the kind of the little taster that I sent out to all the players. Lord Barton Ophid, once a distinguished member of the Lord's Alliance and village head of Amphail, has recently foiled an assassination attempt on his life. This is the second time this has happened. A similar attempt was made about 3 months ago, but then the Amphail assassin escaped. The Lord is convinced that this is the work of the Wardens, a reclusive tribe of wood elves based in the West Wood outside of the village, who will not stop until they succeed. Unfortunately, Amphail does not have the biggest garrison, and attempts to penetrate the forest have been completely unsuccessful. With this second attempt on his life and slaying the would-be assassin in the act, Lord Ophid has implored both the Alliance and the Order of the Gauntlet to provide military support so that they may finally bring the Wardens to justice. However, both factions require some convincing, and so have initially sent potential recruits to investigate, asking for hard evidence of the Warden's involvement before they take further action. Frustrated with this inactivity, Ophid has now spread the word, appealing to adventurers and justice seekers from Waterdeep and beyond, with an offer of 200 gold pieces to drive out the Wardens, and a further prize, Ophid's mantle, to slay Whisperbreeze, the leader of the Wardens. The Lord also believes the Wardens have spies within Amphail, and has requested those with information to come forward. So yeah, basically that is the taster kind of going into it. The reason why players why their characters would get involved in this particular adventure. And to kind of complement that, I also sent out to each of the players some ideas for patrons. I kind of basically designed a handout giving them some characters and some reasons as to why they'd be involved. Now, they didn't have to take these. They're really just kind of suggestions. But I think a few of them, I think for those of you who are looking to run a little game yourself, whether it's like a one-shot, a two-shot, an off-brand thing, or if you start looking to start an entirely new campaign and you want to kind of get your characters grounded and into that world, embedded in the world, and interested in the plot from the get-go, I think that this is quite a good way of doing it by having these suggested patrons. I should say, actually, this is not entirely original in Angelique's game, and I think in a lot of the published material from Wizards of the Coast. They do have, especially with pre-gen, suggested reasons that you would be involved with a plot, or potential patrons that you would know of before sort of jumping into the game. So let me just bring up this for you, so I can have a look here, just like, because I still can't remember all of them off the top of my head. All right. So this adventure will be for characters of 2nd level. It's based in the Forgotten Realms setting, and so the characters basically should fit in with that setting. That's one thing to bear in mind. I've got a few suggested reasons for getting involved in the adventure, but obviously open to more. In fact, I have 6. So first one is the Lord's Alliance connection. So as mentioned in the opening, in the intro, both members of the Lord's Alliance and the Order of the Gauntlet have been reached out to, and so potential recruits have been sent instead. So for the Lord's Alliance, so Matthias Ermbrusk, Stingblade of the Alliance, based in Waterdeep, has heard the call from Lord Ophid and is keen to act. However, more senior members, including the Lords of Waterdeep, have requested more information before mobilising troops. You have been tasked with assisting Ophid in gathering evidence of the Warden's crimes, on the promise that, after this assignment, you'll be initiated into the Alliance yourself. Remember that, because one of our players has definitely taken that patron. Secondly, the Order of the Gauntlets, otherwise known as the Order of the Gauntlet Test. Unlike the other major factions of the Sword Coast, the Order of the Gauntlets are the only ones to have premises in Amphail, with a chapter house on the southwest side of the village. Hand Shatterstone, a bronze dragonborn and leader of the chapter house, has been preoccupied with thwarting attacks on merchant caravans along the Long Road, as well as the ominous unnatural storm clouds and rumours of dragons being sighted in Neverwinter. You, however, have been looking for a way to prove yourself to the Order, so that you may be brought into the fold. Perhaps this is just the opportunity. And again, one of our players has definitely taken that one on. Third, the Natural Order. You know of the Wardens, their appreciation of nature resonating strongly with you. Venturing outside of their forest home seems to be very strange, and not like the group you had heard about. Perhaps the Lord was mistaken. Either way, the old druidic shrine on the north side of the village would be a good place to meditate on this further. Again, one of our players for the stream tomorrow has taken that option. 4. An old friend. You've been looking to throw yourself into your next adventure after a previous encounter with a group of companions along the Sword Coast. You recently received a leaflet about the Amphail Assassin and recognised the name. Luna, a tough warrior and one of your adventuring companions, and quite possibly more, mentioned that she had a house in the village. She was on and off with Cass, one of your other companions, back then, but if she's in Amphail alone, maybe now is the right time to rekindle. 2 of our players have chosen that background, so kind of old associates of Luna. That could be interesting. And then finally, because there was actually 5, not 6, I miscounted, well-gotten gains. Barton Tea Leaf, the halfling owner and proprietor of the Other Inn in Amphail, mentioned the reward on offer for assisting the investigation of the Amphail Assassin. You've been racking up quite a bar tab, so he suggests that for a change you could earn coin legitimately. Garrett reckons he has useful information for the case, as well as knowing what Ophid's mantle actually is, but will only disclose it for a price. He knows you're no hero, but a man's got to eat, and he's got an inn to run. And again, 2 of our players have chosen Garrett Tea Leaf as their patron. So there's going to be some interesting ties, and it's nice to have a couple of characters who already know each other going into the campaign because they've already got that almost kind of relationship. I think that'll be a couple of fun things to get involved with in the game. I look forward to seeing anyway how they interact with each other and kind of get invested into this world. So as you can see on the right here, I've got a map of Amphail. I must confess that I nicked this map from online and I have annotated it and edited it myself. It's a great source of inspiration looking online. There we go. But I have obviously annotated, added the Westwood, Westlake, and so on, because Amphail is an existing place within the Forgotten Realms, so there was bound to be stuff online, so I thought I'd have a look for it. Anyway, I have annotated it, as you can see, with all these numbers, which is just basically a location guide. I'll just go over some of the basics for you, just to give you a little bit of insight into what we've got to contend with here. So number 1 is Amphail Manor. That's the complex central of the village. It's got stables to it. Essentially, this is where Lord Ophid lives, and it's kind of the because of his status as a lord, he owns the manor. He is also the village head, but the village chief, but that doesn't necessitate him owning the manor. That's just purely through his own sort of wealth that he has got this quite a large complex to himself. Number 2 is the village hall. So this mostly houses offices with a bell tower at its centre. The village head's office is towards the back of the building, and down one floor is the jail, which, if players don't behave themselves and other characters don't behave themselves within Amphail, they may well end up in there. Number 3 is the barracks. This is which houses the garrison in Amphail. It doesn't have the biggest garrison. There's about 20 guards in total, although generally only a handful will be in the barracks at any one time, so the rest should be on duty. And then number 4, that marks 2 things. It marks the statue dedicated to Amphail the Just, the founder of Amphail, and that is situated outside of the main inn, which is very central to the village, called the Road Less Travelled. This inn has 6 bedrooms and a function room, and Bryn, the dwarven owner, is very happy to accommodate larger parties, and in the function room and bar area and stable outside. It's really a social hub of the village, so it's a good source of information, but it's definitely a good place to meet people as well. Number 5, you may see just on the left-hand side, right at the edge, is the Other Inn, which is actually called the Other Inn, which is owned by Garrett Tea Leaf. This more dilapidated and less popular inn is very cheap and a known hangout of more unscrupulous individuals, though this is denied by Garrett Tea Leaf, the owner. Number 6, the big domed building to the north, is the Temple of Chontir. Obviously, in the Forgotten Realms, there are many, many gods in the Forgotten Realms pantheon, and Chontir is the goddess of agriculture, and so that's very appropriate for Amphail, because as you can see, there's quite a lot of farmland around. So the temple itself is usually busy with farmhands making offerings to the goddess of agriculture. Elves are conspicuously present here. Because of the situation with the wardens, who are a group of wood elves, it's the fact that there's a lot of elves at the temple is a little bit conspicuous, although it's denied that they are members themselves. Brother Peel tends the temple, but fervently does not want to be involved in the conflict between Amphail and the wardens. Ginne, the assassin killed in the attempt on Lord Ophid, is about to be interred there. So it's one place that players will definitely want to explore early on in the one-shot. Number 7 is the market. So this is home to passing traders and local merchant stores. It includes an enchanter, a fortune teller, a game, meat and hunting supplier, a glass blower, although that's now empty as Janae, the assassin, the would-be assassin, was the glass blower. And at night, generally, the market is empty. Those stores are packed up and everything's kind of locked away. But there's other shops in and around there which are also numbered. Number 8 is All Chemical, the potion store, run by Salazar, a rather enthusiastic, if slightly odd tiefling. Number 9, Finery and Food, is a lovely homeware and grocery store. Just kind of think of sort of Mr. Kipling cakes and sort of Cath Kidston kind of homeware. That's the kind of vibe in Finery and Food. It's run by Sarah Dunn, a kindly lady and Amphail's eldest resident. And number 10 is the last of the shops in that area, the Long Road Trading Post. This is the general store, which is run by Nix Knackle. She's a quick-witted, eccentric gnome who does like collecting curios and trinkets. So if you have any odds and ends, Nix Knackle's a good person to talk to. Number 11 on the west side of town is Sparks the Smithy, which is run by Arhan, an overworked red dragonborn. So if you need weapons and so on, the Smithy's the place to go. Number 12, opposite to the Smithy, is the Order of the Gauntlet Chapter House. As previously mentioned, it's the only faction within the Forgotten Realms, the only one of the 5 main factions that has a base, an official base within Amphail. It's bed and board for travelling members and a meeting place for members in the area. It composes a private bar, a shrine to Helm, that's the god of watchfulness, an armory and a training area. It's run by Hand Shatterstone, as I mentioned before, a measured bronze dragonborn. So then on the sort of outskirts of the village, we've got 13 Dun Farm, an old farmstead run by Darren Dunn and family. It's mainly sort of a cow farming, so there's milk, cheese, beef, also vegetables as well. And most of that produce is then sent to Finery and Food, because Sarah Dunn is also a member of the Dunn family. She's the sort of matriarch of the family. And then number 14 is Sword Shadow Farm. This is a wheat farm owned by the Torren clan, which is a dwarf family led by Flint Torren. And as I said, it's wheat, so they mainly export bread, flour, and wheat beer, and keeps the pubs happy having that nearby. And then number 15 is the Old Shrine, a druidic shrine to Rilithane Ralathil, elven god of nature. There's an elven pantheon as well as the main pantheon. There's a dwarven pantheon in the Forgotten Realms, all the pantheons. But anyway, there's a druidic shrine there to Rilithane Ralathil, elven god of nature. Since hostilities with the wardens, the shrine is kept under supervision by guards, but it is still used by those who wish to pray there. And then finally, 16... which you'll see just to the south next to the sign saying Amphail, is Luna's house. That's the home of Luna, who I mentioned as one of the patrons, a warrior and adventurer. This is her home when she's not on expeditions. So that kind of gives you a lay of the land, really, for Amphail. Those are the key locations, some of which will be very, very relevant for the plot. And you'll see all about that tomorrow from 2 p.m. Before we leave today, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to talk about, and that is, of course, the players themselves. I've had a lot of fun over the last couple of weeks building up the players, the player characters. The players themselves, most of them also play in the main campaign Tales from the Sword Coast, so they'll be playing completely different characters a week from now, which will be more mainstay. But this will just give you an introduction to the players themselves, and also gives them a chance to try out some new fun characters. So without any further ado, let's jump in with our characters. So as you can see here, we've got quite a few of them on offer, and so we've got a halfling rogue, a Gith cleric of the Arcana domain, a human paladin. We've got a half-orc multi-class barbarian and rogue, we'll talk about that. We've got a half-elf warlock following the Archfey. For those of you who watch the Many Lands campaign, our regular campaign here on the channel, you'll know we've got a half-elf warlock following the Archfey in that as well, in Leoberin, the legend with a ruff that is Leoberin. So Nerefade's got some large shoes to fill. And we've also got an Aesima Bard, and to round things all off, a Dwarf Barbarian. So, okay, delving into those characters then, let's start off with Barton Tea Leaf. So, here's Barton here. Barton is going to be played by Johnny. Johnny plays Theolan the Cleric in the main Tales from the Sword Coast campaign, so you will be seeing more of him, and this is a real departure from that character with Barton. So Barton Tea Leaf is a cousin of Garrett Tea Leaf, they have the same last name, and basically he's kind of his dimwit cousin that kind of has got involved in some shady deals and stuff, but a bit more sort of by accident and unknowingly. He also is a bit of a drinker and has built up quite a bar tab with Garrett, and that's why he's looking to earn some coin. So as you can see from his stats here, so Johnny went for the standard array with this one, and so you've got a +3 on Dex, +2 on Wisdom, because he's not very bright, but Wisdom could be useful for perceiving things mostly. A good Constitution score as a stout halfling, and then he's got a bit of strength. Got some charisma because halflings do like to have a chat with people, but intelligence is really where Barton is lacking. So as a level 2 rogue, he gets the benefit of cunning action, so he gets to use those bonus actions for dashing, disengaging, and hiding, which is all so much fun. It gives you a lot of flexibility during combat and so on. And hopefully, main skills we've got here, he's an expert in investigation, and I'm guessing Thieves' Tools is his second one that he's an expert in. Both of those things for this kind of mystery and intrigue kind of one-shot, I'm sure will come in handy. All right, so then he's a patron of Garrett Tea Leaf. We have a second patron of Garrett Tea Leaf, and that is Manu. So Manu, the half-orc, barbarian, and rogue multi-class. This is played by Matt. Now, Matt isn't in the main Tales from the Sword Coast campaign, so this will be a one-off for him, at least for now. But I've played D&D with him many times. It's been a lot of fun, and I think he's watched here on the channel a few times too, so I'm sure he'll appreciate this. So as you can see from these redonkulous stats here, so Matt rolled his stats and didn't roll below a 13, which is just ridiculous. But there we have it. So he's got some really good stats, and I'm interested to see how a rogue and barbarian multiclass works out in this game. But he's got obviously some enviable skills here, and an armor class of 16 because of unarmored defense with his +4 Constitution and +2 Dex. Means he's going to be pretty tough to beat, I think, in a combat situation. And he'll be able to halve the damage anyway if he's raging. So in a combat situation, yeah, I think Manu's going to dominate. But essentially, the story with Manu is that he is a kind of the bouncer at the other inn. Kind of a bit of muscle for Garrett because, he's got the stature which Garrett lacks. And also the physicality to get involved should things get a bit brusque or get a bit violent, which they can do in the other end, as it does host sort of the more nefarious individuals on the edge of the village. It does need somebody to kind of have a firm grip on the situation, and that's kind of where Manu jumps in. But again, he's a drinker. He's really likes to spend his coin, and he does so not very wisely, it would seem, despite his +2 wisdom. So his stats: +4 strength, +4 constitution, it's crazy, +2 dex, +1 intelligence, and +2 to wisdom and charisma as well. So he's pretty darn good. And the main thing that's going to be an issue is that he's an expert in perception. So his passive perception is 16, which means that most things that are hidden, he's probably going to spot straight away. Not an issue for me, but certainly it's an important thing nonetheless. You may have noticed, not so much with Manu because it seems to have reset, but with the other players you'll have noticed that their HP is higher than usual. So the reason for that is that in Angelique's Sword Coast game, the HP is done a little bit differently from level 1, just to kind of essentially to kind of fill the gap that that level 1 PCs are a bit too frail in Angelique's opinion, and so we decided to instead of doing your the full score for your class plus your Constitution modifier, you instead get the score for your class plus your entire Constitution score. So those people with a very high Constitution end up with a lot of hit points early on. So it says here that that Manu's is 25, which is actually wrong, because in the new calculation, with an 18 Constitution, then plus 8 for Rogue, would put him on 26 at level 1. He then took a level of Barbarian, which means it's going to be high average, which would be 7 plus another 4 for the Constitutions. That's another 11. So it's going to be 37 altogether. So I'm just going to change his max HP modifier to that. There we go, 37. So that is Manu, and that's the two kind of the two roguish and slightly morally dubious members of the group, or at least the most morally dubious that we know of anyway, the most openly dubious. There we go. That seems the most morally grey, and obviously morally grey. Next up then is Evan Dundragon. This is the Paladin. Now he is looking to join the Order of the Gauntlet, and you know he's a Paladin. Of course he wants to join the Order. This is played by Kermit, who plays Val, the Wood Elf Rogue, in the main campaign. So it's going to be interesting to see him change things up. Although he's an arcane trickster rogue, so he's just started to get his magical stuff, he's kind of leaning in a bit more into the magical side with this paladin, and taking a walk on the armoured side this time. As you can see, with an armour class of 19, that's pretty strong to start with. And then Evan is a variant human, so he's Kermit's taken a feat at level 1 for Evan, and he's taken the Magic Initiate feat, which gives him gives a bit of versatility in that he gets some cantrips, which otherwise let's see them here, which otherwise you wouldn't get. So he's gone for Sorcerer Magic Initiate, because that relies on Charisma, which as a Paladin he's already good at. It gives him the Light spell, so he can see in the dark, and Ray of Frost, which is great for spamming at bad guys if you want to do some magical damage. And in terms of his stats, I think Kermit went for... he went for a point buy on his build. So point buy was the average 27, for those of you who know point buy. If you don't, just ignore that. But basically, he's got 2 dump stats. He's got -1 to his dexterity and his wisdom, and then to sort of make up for that, he's then got a +3 in strength and a +3 in charisma. And then he's sort of +2 for Constitution, always helpful, and then just kind of left intelligence on 0. So this guy is going to be useful sort of in the front line in a battle situation. In terms of in an exploratory kind of gathering intel, which is what the first part at least of the one shot will be. He's also got trained in deception, intimidation and persuasion, so when it comes to charisma checks, he's going to be a useful kind of figurehead for the party in a sense, although he may have some competition with our next one, Orphea, the variant ASMR bard. So Orphea is played by Lucy, who normally plays Maya, the druid of the land in the main campaign, and kind of the emotional heart of the group actually in the main campaign. So she brings some strong roleplay to the table, and I think I'm just going to sort of see how the other half live by trying out bards and going for something charisma-based this time. Again, she's gone for a point buy as well, just and has gone for, rather than trying to lean into the stats, you can tell by the build, by the stats here, that she's really kind of gone more into the what suits for the role-playing side of things. So she's not very strong, and she's also not got a good constitution either, which goes against the grain for those power build types, with a -1 to both of those. However, she has then got a +2 in pretty much everything else, in dexterity, intelligence, and wisdom, and then a +3 in that all-important for bards, charisma. So again, she's going to be a useful one when it comes to negotiations, well, particularly in terms of persuasion and performance, as she's trained in those. And then with Jack of all trades at level 2, it means that she can turn her hand to most things, and it could be interesting. So Orphea is the member of the group that is trying to seek favour with the Lord's Alliance, and so that's why she has come to look into this matter, hoping to prove herself to the Order. And there's a lot more to her backstory as well, which I won't go into now. But safe to say, let's look at the spells a second. She's not going to be in the front line. She's going to be, if there's a combat situation, she's going to be in the back. But certainly she's got some useful tricks up her sleeve for sort of party support in Cure Wounds, Healing Word, Sleep, and Charm Person could be useful for getting that vital information from people when you need it most. So, and also, I actually shouldn't forget Identify, because they may well come across something, and Identify may well be useful for that if they want to find any magical items or anything of the sort. Next up, speaking of magic, this is Dath Guy Tirsu. I probably said that wrong. This is played by Stephen, who usually plays Kitrai in. He's the half-elf. We don't know what the other half is. Ranger in the main campaign, and so Dath is an interesting character because he's a Githzeri, first of all, so he's basically an alien, which is interesting. He's going to hide his appearance from most people, but Dath is here for different reasons. Now, he knows of the Wardens and the fact that they're a Wood Elf tribe hidden out in the Westwood, knows about them, wants information from them, but actually it's not really related to the Amphail Assassin. He's after something very different, something that may link with the main campaign. We'll see what that is when we get to it. But in terms of his skills, he's gone for I think he's gone for just a standard array. So -1 to strength and a 0 on dexterity. So not going to be good in a fist fight or any kind of weapon-based combat. However, he's got that +3 for wisdom, and as a cleric, that's what you need for your spells. A +3 to intelligence, meaning that he's just a very bright individual, and clearly is going to be looking into some things, and it helps. It kind of helps. I guess complements the wizardly background, because this is an arcane cleric. So he's going to have, he's of the Arcana domain, so he's going to have some more wizardly feeling spells. So he's got Frostbite and Ray of Frost as cantrips from that domain to go with all of the other things he gets. So as a Githzeri, he gets a Mage Hand, and then he's also got he's still got the 3 cleric cantrips: Guidance, Sacred Flame, and Toll the Dead. So he's going to pack a punch in terms of magical prowess, and I think in terms of the investigation, he's got the +5 to perception, so that's definitely going to be useful. And particularly when the group go to visit the Temple of Chantaire, Dath is probably going to come into his own with his religion training there, despite the fact that he basically will be hiding his appearance under a cowl most of the time, because, well, as far as I understand it, in the Forgotten Realms, Githzeri are rare to say the least, being that they are from a completely different plane of existence. I probably should have said more with Orphea, actually, that as an Asimar, she's also very unusual. And perhaps not many know that she is an Asimar. She just seems to be just quite an attractive human, and that's pretty much all that can be told. But there's definitely more to that, as we may as well see during the game. So then 2 left to go, and the last 2 I've saved are those who have direct connections to Luna. They're adventuring companions of Luna and Cass back in the day, First of all, there's Rurik Ironballs, who's a mountain dwarf barbarian. He's played by Rich, and Rich plays Rogar in the Dragonborn fighter in our current game, in the main game in the Tales of the Sword Coast. And he's kind of the, I guess he's the foil to the party's planning. He's the guy that runs in at the front, bashes open the front door while everyone at the back is working out how best to infiltrate somewhere. He just walks straight on in there, which I think sometimes is definitely needed, but it also provides a good kind of counterpoint to a lot of the group's way of doing things. And I think Rurik Ironballs is probably in a similar vein to that he just kind of go in and hit stuff and cause a bit of a commotion. So in terms of his skills, he's got +3 to his strength and constitution, definitely useful as a barbarian. Unfortunately not quite as good as Manu, who is part barbarian and part rogue. But that aside, still got some solid stats. Got a +1 to his dexterity, and then +0 to everything else. I believe he was a point buy for his stats, and things that he's going to be able to bring to the table, as well as just general strength and roughhousing, is as a second level barbarian. He gets danger sense, which is going to be particularly useful if there are any traps or any other effects that may happen to the party as they go on their investigations. And also having a dwarf in the party is never a bad thing, with saves against poison and resistant to poison damage. And stone cunning also could come into its own when researching, so that could be useful. So Rurik adventured with Nera, who I'll talk about next, and Luna and Cass, and they went exploring in the swamps of the Mere of Dead Men. And the reason for that is that basically, I think it was Nera's idea, but essentially Rurik's a mercenary, Nera's a bounty hunter, the other two were adventurers and looking for coin as well, and they were tasked with seeking out a sort of dark druid who seemed to be carrying out some experiments on the wildlife down in the Mere of Dead Men, sort of diabolical experiments. Now, unfortunately, the bounty was not carried out, as when they got there, they managed to overcome a lot of odds, but sadly, Cass got separated from the rest and was sort of dragged under into the swamp by a giant crocodile, and so the other three kind of called it off there, leaving him for dead. Luna was distraught at that, but believed that he could have made it out of there somehow. And so Rurik and Nera really haven't spoken to her since then. However, they have still done some adventuring together, and when they heard about the Amphail Assassin and remembered Luna mentioning Amphail, they decided together that perhaps they'd go and explore that. Rurik kind of sees Nera more as a child, and he kind of acts as a father figure, and I think it was a similar relationship to Luna, more of a friendly one than a romantic one. But the same cannot be said for Nera Fade, our half-elf warlock, who is played by Angelique, who will be DMing the main campaign. And so, as you can imagine, Nera's quite well embedded into the world already, and has some surprises in store that even I am not completely privy to. But what we do know, or at least what I know about Nera, is, again, this is... she rolled for her stats, Angelique, for this one, and didn't do quite so well on the rolls. As you can see, there's a -1 to strength, a -1 to wisdom, and then a +0 to constitution. Again, kind of going for a characterful choice here rather than going for the most combat efficient or what have you. And I think that's one of the things that's nice about the rule of adding the constitution score at first level rather than the modifier, because I think it gives you that flexibility to have, a certain amount of hit points and still, make having a +0 or -1 constitution virtually a valid choice. Because I feel like in Dungeons and Dragons, although it's deemed fine, because you will have a dump stat when you use the standard array, it's deemed fine to put it into anything. If you put it into constitution, everyone would be asking you, well, why are you doing that? That doesn't make any sense. It's kind of a social faux pas, if you like, for building a character. So this kind of gives you that flexibility to make it, okay, they haven't got the best constitution, but they can withstand a hit or two. But as you can see, as a warlock, +4 to charisma is vitally important, and I'm sure that will come in useful for particularly Eldritch Blasts, as I seem to remember Nira's Eldritch Invocations, include a Eldritch Blast, adding +4 to damage on hit, and Armor of Shadows, meaning she can cast Mage Armor on herself at will without expending a spell slot or material components. So kind of more combat heavy, I'd say, this warlock, especially for what we're used to here on the channel with Leobrin, who's very much a sort of rear guard, keep out of the fray kind of fighter or spellcaster. Nira is kind of seems to be not afraid to get her hands dirty whatsoever. And in terms of in the investigation skill with a +5, and then in terms of interaction, persuasion and deception all have +6. So those things in particular will have their uses. But having a good stealth score when you're snooping is never a bad thing, and she's certainly got that covered as well with a +5. Yes, so Nira is a bounty hunter from Neverwinter. Originally was heading to Leyland before hearing about the Amphail Assassin and wanted to kind of meet up with Luna. Now Nira is apparently one time had a bit of a romance. We're not sure who with. It may have been Luna. It may not have been. There was a kind of will they, won't they question mark around her. But she generally is very amicable, but also perceived she's quite attractive, quite a sort of sassy lady, and definitely uses her feminine wiles when it suits her. I think there's definitely an agenda behind most things that she does, kind of calculating in a sense. I think she'll be an interesting one to watch, as will all of these. And what I really kind of look forward to is after this one shot is over, is then kind of how these characters may come back into play in the main campaign. They may pop up from time to time as characters in that, provided they survive, of course. And in addition to that, the characters that I've created that are in the campaign could also pop up if Angelique deems to use them, which I think is very exciting. The other reason to leave it open is that we will occasionally be doing one-shots in this campaign setting, and so having these characters here mean that potentially these characters can be brought back and used in different campaigns, and we can have a kind of a different another game going on, trying out different characters. Especially in times of lockdown, it's nice to have these extra things going on, and it also leaves it open for somebody else to come and DM other one shots of other things they want to try, and we've already got these characters here ready to go. So that was kind of the thought process behind it. So last little tidbits before we end today. So in terms of the characters, I'm particularly excited to bring about. There's 3 of them actually that I'm really excited to see how the players react to them. Firstly, as I said, Barton Tea Leaf as the owner of the Other Inn, quite a nefarious individual. But he was, fun fact, I was talking about self-referential stuff earlier. Barton Tea Leaf is the first character I ever played in D&D 5e. It was my first ever experience of Dungeons & Dragons. The Halfling Rogue, he is the pre-gen Halfling Rogue from Lost Mines of Phandelver. If you haven't played it, please do. It's really good. And also some of the bases for the main campaign in the Sword Coast. So it's nice to kind of have that reference in there. Speaking of references, another character that will appear as a trader is a gnome hunter-gatherer, a gnome ranger by the name of Todd Bindwood. Now, Todd is the first character that I played in a long-term game in Dungeons & Dragons. Absolutely loved playing him. He's probably still my favourite character, but I feel like every time I build a game, I end up putting him in there in some way. And it'd be a lot of fun to kind of have him popping up. And for those of you who have played D&D with me as Todd, you will probably get that reference as well straight away. It should be a lot of fun to bring him back and see how he helps or hinders our party going forward. And then finally, So, being a bit of a theatrical entertainer type myself, I have one suitably theatrical and entertaining character also brought into the game tomorrow as an NPC that may well be useful to the players. I hope would be useful to the players anyway. He was a lot of fun building him, and that is Carracticus. Now, Carracticus is not human. He has blue skin. I don't want to reveal yet what exactly he is, but he's certainly an interesting being from another dimension. And he is his main thing. So he's an entertainer, but no, I hear you ask. No, he's not a bard. He is, in fact, a wizard. Because I thought having a street performer like sort of Dynamo or something like that, he specializes in conjuration. I just thought, why can't we have a wizard who's also an entertainer? I feel like that's something that maybe isn't explored enough. It's not a typical build for a character in Dungeons and Dragons. So I thought, let's push the envelope. Let's see what this looks like. But conjuring things out of thin air could be a lot of fun. Could be really helpful. Could also be potentially quite annoying depending on what is conjured. But we'll see how that plays out when we get to it. So anyway, those three are the ones to watch, I would say. There are plenty of other characters besides, and I'm going to be doing a lot of voices. It's going to be a lot to take in. So it should be good fun, and I hope that this will in fact be a one-shot. I may have overcooked it. It might be slightly too long, and we'll just have to kind of go with it at the time and see where it leads. But anyway, join us for the campaign for the one shot tomorrow from 2 p.m. here on the channel. Should be a lot of fun. And then, of course, that'll give you a nice little taster for the main campaign for Tales from the Sword Coast, which will be coming to us from next week. That's on Saturday, 2 p.m. or 2:30 p.m. So anyway, join us for that. Thank you all so much for watching today, and hopefully we'll hear from you all tomorrow. Until then, guys, stay safe and have a great weekend.